Well, welcome to probably one of the most important interviews that I'm going to ever do, because it's about my life. It's about my friend, Suzanne Stack. It's about your life. I've avoided talking about coronavirus and what's going on, but Suzanne and I are really close, and we're talking last night, and we're going through a lot. Hi, Suzanne.
Hi, Betty.
How are you?
I'm, you know, I I read somewhere the other day is somebody said they were feeling a combination of gratitude, anxiety, and a couple of other things. And I thought, that is perfect. Like when do you feel a combination of gratitude and anxiety? Like people in flood ridden communities feel that, but we watch that on the news. We don't experience it. People in war-torn countries, they're lucky to be alive, but they're constantly anxious. And I thought that's perfect. That's exactly, it's all over the emotional map. It's gratitude and anxiety. That's exactly how I feel.
Right. Me too. And we don't really, I think, well, maybe me. I don't really know how I feel because I'm so good at forging onward, and so are you, but forging onward, and I don't want to think about it, and I'm going to, whatever.
Don't want to dwell on it.
Don't want to dwell, don't want to be negative. I was talking to my son Michael today, and I was telling him, which we'll talk about later, that I was thinking that I'm going to move out of New York City, and we'll talk about that. And I said, when I think of it, it's a strange position for somebody my age to be, and single, to be picking up and moving, and not really understanding why, because where I'm going, there's still social distancing. All right, let's start with, so that gives you an idea, folks, where we're going. Suzanne.
Yes.
Where do you live? Where did you live? What are you going to do for the dessert course of your life? You can make that the last half of the...
It's like the fast flash
forward. Take your time. We're not in a hurry. Forward.
You're now in the dessert course of your life. Like a year ago, I'd be talking to my financial advisor, and she'd say, you really shouldn't even think about Social Security for a while because you don't have enough saved for your retirement, And now when I talk to her, she's like, yeah, Social Security sounds like a good option.
Yeah.
Like everything is different. And I read every morning to my nephew's 4-year-old daughter, and she's asked me a couple of times she's trying to figure out where I am. She said, where do you live? And I said, I threw her a bone. I said, well, right now I'm living in Rockport. She said, but where do you live regular? And I thought, there's nothing regular. So I said, well, I kind of lied. I cheated. I said, I live in Brooklyn, because she knows Brooklyn because her other auntie lives in Brooklyn. So I said, I live in Brooklyn near Ann. She said, oh, okay, you live in Brooklyn near Ann. Then she asked me again a week later, and I thought, I can't keep lying to this kid. So,
I live in high school, and you'll be telling.
Yeah. Just say, why haven't I seen you yet?
Right.
I'm in high school now. So I lived in Brooklyn. I thought I was going to live there for a long time. I love it. I love my community in Bushwick. I probably, of everybody in my house of flatmates, I know more people on the street than anyone. I just love my community and my neighbors, and there's a reservoir, a 10-minute bike ride from my house. You feel like you're in the country. And
where?
Then in just over the border of Brooklyn into Queens, there's Highland Park and a reservoir, and it's just magical.
Wow.
And yeah. And so, there's that. And then there's great restaurants and
I love it there.
Manhattan's half an hour away. It's really something. So that's where I was living. And I woke up one morning, early Corona. I woke up one morning to see a text message from my sister. And she said, my son went to my condo in Rhode Island. You can go there too. And
Wow.
I had not given a thought at that point to leaving. That was
When was that?
It's kind of like, sorry?
Was it how many days ago?
This was about 6 weeks ago.
And she called you and out of the blue.
She texted me. She's in California, so I got this text when I woke up in the morning, and it said, "How are you? You can. My son's at the condo. You can go there too." And I thought, should I be going there? Why is he there? What's happening?
Fire? Yeah.
What? Wait, am I just the last person to figure this out? Have I been like really in denial? Like what's happening? And then next thing I knew, I packed everything up in one day and I moved everything the next day.
Wow. Wow.
And yeah. And I was driving across, I really wanted to drive through Manhattan on my way out, but I ran out of time. I'd gotten word that they were stopping cars with New York plates at the Rhode Island border.
Really?
Of Connecticut. So I really move on. And I had hardly slept in 3 days. I was exhausted. So I realized I was not going to be able to go through Manhattan. But the very last thing I did in Brooklyn, I needed to go to some friends in Bed-Stuy and drop some keys off there. And I was starving, so I went to a bodega, which I wouldn't think about doing now because I don't want anybody touching my food. But I was still, it's muscle memory. I was still doing that. I went to a bodega, got a sandwich. I went to my friends. I went up on their roof. And while I was up on their roof, I looked across to neighboring buildings and I saw my dear friends who live around the corner from this location. And I could hear them out on their back patio because I probably could hear them because the ambient noise was so low. There were hardly any buses, hardly any cars, hardly any traffic on the streets. People weren't out. And I heard my friends' voices and I looked over and they were there, my friend and her little daughter, and I yelled across.
Oh
no. Bill, Asada, I'm over here. And I started jumping up and down and waving my arms. And they saw me and they yelled over, Belle, the mom of little Asada, yelled over, "We love you."
Oh.
And I said, "I love you too. I'll call you soon and explain everything." And they didn't know I was about to leave. They didn't know I had packed up my entire life. And that was my goodbye to Brooklyn.
Wow.
And
So you went and got in your car.
I went and got in my car. And so as I was driving across the Whitestone Bridge, I looked to my left and saw the New York skyline. This was about 7:00. So it wasn't dark yet. And I saw the New York skyline and I just wept. I just cried. Because it was a defining moment, It's like I was leaving. I had no idea what was going to happen next, when I would be back, if I would be back. Would I ever live in New York again? The city I love.
Wow. Why did you leave? Why did you not decide, I'm going to make this work?
I would have had to rely on other people greatly to do that. And that didn't make me feel comfortable.
No.
My work had dried up. And
can you say what your work is so people?
Yes. So I'm an actor, and I really been starting out. I haven't been doing it that long, so the momentum was still getting going. I was doing casting and advertising for years, and I began to see that there was a lot of work for people in my age group, and there wasn't a lot of talent. There weren't a lot of people who were available to it, and my clients were constantly kvetching that they didn't have enough choices. They were always seeing the same people. So I thought, well, there's room in the pool for me.
Yeah.
So I jumped in, and I've really been enjoying it, and eking out a living with some other things that I was doing. But as anyone can imagine, like, so many things have dried up, and the gigs that I had been going on auditions, they were now out of the question. Film and TV, which I've been doing a bit of, were now shelved because they all require close proximity and large groups of people. And so that's what I was doing. And it was just very plain to see that I wasn't going to be able to pay my bills. I wasn't going to be able to pay my rent. So
For a while. I mean,
for a while.
But I don't know when that, when, yeah, I was just going to say, we have no idea when you talk about people whose lives are affected. I mean, actors.
Right. Right. And I feel like when I was younger, I did not really, I'm an optimist, but sometimes I think to my detriment. And when I was younger, I didn't always, I guess we can all say this, right? When we were younger, I didn't always do the practical thing. I did what I wanted to do. And if it was a tough decision, I would go towards, well, this is what I want to do. And maybe that other thing would have been a better thing to do, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I'll just figure it out. So way before I was thinking about leaving Brooklyn, I was thinking about how am I going to pay my bills. And so I went downtown to sign up for some assistance to see about what I could get in terms of benefits. And I ended up spending 5 hours there, and it brought me to my knees. And
it's horrible.
It was.
But it's also dangerous.
How so?
Well, just being in the proximity of people like that.
Right.
Not people like that, but people
being close
that in that. Yeah,
I was surprised that it wasn't more crowded. But yes, there were other people there. But it was so eye-opening for me. And I ended up, by the time I left there 5-6 hours later, I was confused. I was exhausted. I was sad. I was disheartened.
Yeah, that's horrible.
I sat in a room for hours, this big room for hours, and looked around at the people around me. I saw a woman with 5 children, and those children sat on their chairs for hours. And I was amazed that they were able to do that. And I was amazed that they didn't have any provision for these kids. Whole Foods has a little mini playground, for God's sake. There were no books, there were no toys, there was nothing. There was nothing. And these children seemed to understand that. And they reminded me of like little robots or something. And that was really hard for me. I have a gazillion nieces and nephews. And so that was really, really hard to witness. This one the youngest of these 5 children that this woman had would whimper every now and then, and she would the mom would just be on the phone, and she'd just ignore her. Once in a while, she took her onto her lap, but I never saw her speaking to her. And I kind of wanted to take that kid in my arms, because I probably need to be held too at that point. But
both of you.
Yeah. And I spent a lot of time there, and was told that after being interviewed by a representative, I was told that the most I could expect towards my rent. This is after answering a lot of questions, and I told her, I have no work. I have none. I have no work. I have nothing. I was told that I was going to have to provide a lot of documentation, and I should send it in, and then I was going to have to come back for another meeting. But in the most ideal circumstance, the best I could expect would be $250 towards my $1,000 rent. So that was pretty sobering. I thought, well, okay, this is it. I came here to see what I could get, and this is what I could get.
This is right. This is real. This is reality.
This is real. This is reality. And she told me that, and then she said, go downstairs to this room and you can pick up some Metro cards. So I thought, okay, well, it's now close to quitting time for them. They're government employees. They don't work overtime. So I thought, okay, I'll be out of here soon. So I went down to this room, and it was a big room. There were about 30 chairs, 4 people sitting on the 30 chairs, and like DMV, a screen up there that said now serving and a number. Look for your number up here to see when, and there was no number. So I looked to my right, and there are the windows with the people working behind the windows like at DMV, and there was nobody in line at the window. But there was a security guard who was at one of the windows chatting with one of the employees. So I thought, well, this is weird. So I thought, I must have it. I'm just going to ask, right? This is, since I turned 50, I have no problem asking questions. I have no problem at all.
Right.
Like, I'm going to appear clueless or foolish. I'm very comfortable playing devil's,
Yeah. I'm
very comfortable with that. So I went up to the window where the security guard was chatting away, and I said, hi, I'm just a little confused because it says, because there's no windows up there. There's no numbers up there on the screen. She said, yeah, just take a seat. You just take a seat.
Right.
Your number's going to be called. You just take a seat. So I turned around and I tried to catch the eye of one of my fellow citizens, but they were in that stare. They were in that resigned stare. I didn't catch the eye of anybody. I sat down, and the security guard went back to chatting with the woman at the window. And I've managed a lot of people, so this was very hard for me to not say, wait a second, you need to step away from her window so she can do her work, so we can get in there and we can get out of here. But while I was thinking that, a friend called me to check in, and I answered the phone, and I just started to cry.
Awesome.
And I just started to cry. I just was at my wits' end, and I thought, this is the first time I've ever had to do anything like this, and I am brought to my knees. And there are people who do this all the time.
There are people who do this, and they're treated abusively. Can you imagine what that's like? Can you imagine? You're absolutely right. And then you wonder why, these people are angry or do what they do. I mean, they've been treated like that maybe all their lives.
Exactly.
I'm so sorry that you went through that. Yeah. It's what?
Oh, excuse me. I was going to say it was just a confusion of emotions too, because in addition to feeling angry and disappointed and pissed off and disheartened, I don't belong here, and I am making it more difficult for people who have than I have to get what they need. And so that was another thing going on there, I'm very lucky to have my family and their support, because here I am in beautiful Cape Ann, Massachusetts,
which is so drop dead gorgeous place.
Which is one of the most beautiful places on the earth. And 2 of my 5 sisters live within shouting distance.
Oh, they do.
Yes, they live around.
Oh.
They live around the corner. Yes.
So so you left Brooklyn, you have a car, you drove up to Cape Ann.
I drove up to Cape Ann. I did not get stopped at the border with my New York plates because Waze took me through Connecticut directly to Massachusetts, which I'm going to embarrass myself by admitting that my geography is so bad. I didn't know that was possible. I thought you had to drive through Connecticut and then Rhode Island to get to Massachusetts, because that's how I always do it, because I always stop at my brother's in Rhode Island when I'm going on my way to Massachusetts.
So you lived in such a bubble that you thought, well, that's the only way.
Yeah. So my brother had called to warn me. He said, they're going to stop you at the border. You have New York plates. Just tell them, everything's good and you're not going to stay. You're not staying in Rhode Island. You're just driving through to Massachusetts and they'll let you go. So you just tell them that. I said, okay. So I get in the car and as usual, I fire up Waze, because Waze is, I don't have to think about it. And if there's some kind of traffic snarl, I don't have to think about it. So I fire up Waze, which was hilarious because there was no traffic. I saw maybe 5 cars the entire 4.5-hour drive. And I fired up the Waze and Waze told me to go, and I'm going, and I'm driving and driving. It's dark. The sun is set. I'm in Connecticut. I'm still in Connecticut. And I'm thinking, what's happening here? Why am I still in Connecticut? When am I going to get to Rhode Island? And then the next thing I know, welcome to Massachusetts.
Yay.
So that was surreal. But it's like Waze had activated this special thing to bypass Rhode Island so I wouldn't get stopped. It was like somebody had gone into my preferences and said, skip Rhode Island.
So there you are. Yeah, I'm just going to say I would suggest getting Rhode Island plates soon.
Yes.
I would turn in the old New York plates and.
Well, that's part of accepting that I left New York.
Yeah, I know. Can we talk? I would like to talk about something with you. And I so appreciate the story you just told us. That's a big time story. That's a very big story. And I, of course, am sorry it's happened. And we've all been through, hopefully, things that make us know we're human like everybody else and like what everybody else has to put up with. But I'm moving out of New York as well. I'm considering, even if it's just the summer, but I'm with my family and we're in a place called Red Hook, New York. And my daughter is adorable and lucky, and we're all up here and we've been here for 6 weeks. But I don't see myself going back to New York to windows that you can only open 2 inches or something. And with no, this physical distancing.
Yeah, you had no access to outside at your place.
No access to outside except to walk the dog and then go back. I mean, it's not like there's going to be, even if I left the dog at home and I went, there's not a movie, there's not a restaurant, and I don't know when it'll be back. And my decision to leave is also, I mean, I don't want New York to hear what I'm saying, but New York is physically very limiting. For me, it's limiting in that I like even the tiniest terrace. I'd like to be able to open a door and let and I don't feel ever that way in New York. And I have a really sweet little apartment, but I think I've given up a part of my humanity by living with a good buy in a good neighborhood with nice people. And I mean, but there's no light.
Building. We spent New Year's Eve with your neighbors, and it was
my
wonderful.
Neighbors. Can you believe them? They're the most darling. We had New Year's Eve. Suzanne and I had New Year's Eve at my apartment, and my neighbors just kept coming in and leaving and coming back. And
at the beginning of the evening, you were saying, I have no idea if anyone's even going to come. And everyone came.
Everyone.
There's no surprise because it's Betty and everyone loves to be around
Oh,
Betty.
no. And the thing is, a lot of them had never talked to each other.
Mm-hmm.
We've all lived there a long time, but they've never talked to each other. And now they're like friends. And someone said we should do it once a month. And I mean, that makes me sad. But on the other hand, moving out of New York, I think I have this podcast called The Dessert Course. And I think, Suzanne, you can relate to this. And I imagine our listeners, is that this is the dessert course of my life. And I really miss being outside. I really miss an apartment that's halfway decent with a, that's this limited space. I want to be able to paint. I want to be able to do so many things, but our apartments are just like little boxes that we rest in and then go out and do everything. I don't know. People are going to get mad. And if you're mad at me, folks, and you're saying, oh no, but that's fine. But
that's their reality. And this is
that's
your
their reality. I mean, I joined a gym and I did all that. Gyms are closed.
And you, Betty, you were what I think of as the consummate New Yorker. You took advantage of all New York had to offer.
Oh.
You would go to Lincoln Center. You would go to the museums. You fully took advantage.
I did.
Of what New York has to offer. You weren't just in your apartment complaining that you didn't have a terrace and had to go down get in the elevator to leave the building to get outside, Right. There you go. You really took advantage of New York. And in many ways, I think this is even bigger for you than it is for me, because while I'm a New Yorker, it's Brooklyn, and Brooklyn is different. And I don't think of myself as a consummate New Yorker. I did not take advantage of the museums as much as I could have.
Suzanne, you say that, but you would call me and say, let's go to the movies. And we were like, they were serving us dinner when we were watching the movies. And then we went to that church, the church down in Wall Street, where they set up as a hospital. And we were in there watching movies. No, Suzanne, don't. And what else did we do? Something in Central Park.
I showed different ways you can go to the movies in New York.
Yeah, you did. You found many ways.
Hyde Park in the summer, the Nighthawk in Brooklyn.
The Nighthawk. So that's all amazing, and it'll exist. I want to talk about.
I heard Nighthawk is closed.
Well, see, one of the things that we could talk about as well is that a lot of the things we do in New York, it's so tragic. I read an article in the New York Times by the woman who was the owner of Prune Restaurant, and just how she's closing it down. Prune Restaurant is just a fantastic place. And Katie's been there many times. My daughter's been there many times. And she talked about closing it down. And there's a lot going to be closed down.
Right.
And I'm so sad.
Yeah.
I'm so sad for Helen. The woman in my building there's a manicure nail salon. And she worked so hard. 9:30, she'd be giving someone's kid a manicure. She worked so hard. She's been closed. She'll be closed for months and months. I don't know that she can sustain herself. I don't know if they're going to give her a rent break. Or what about the women that work there? She can't afford to pay them. What's going to happen to them?
Right.
I'm so sorry for these people.
They'll hopefully get unemployment, which is a whole nother story, but you can't really live on unemployment. And I'll tell you, I had to make 60 phone calls before I was able to open a claim with unemployment. 60. Wow. That's not an exaggeration.
60.
I made 60 phone calls over several weeks before I was able to get through and complete it. And I'm just imagine if you are a parent who has 4 children.
Yes.
Who you have to bathe and feed and help them with their homework. And meanwhile, you're on hold.
Yeah.
You're on hold. You follow all these prompts, and then you're on hold, and then it's like, you know what? Actually, call back another time because we're too overloaded. That's the
Oh my
announcement
God.
you would get, the recording that you would get. So as stressful and challenging as it was for me, I thought, I'm just me. This is easy for me compared to parents and people who are elderly who are trying to get unemployment. Well, I guess they're not, or maybe they are. I mean, if you're still working when you're in your if you're still working, and a lot of people in New York are, to pay their rent, they're working past retirement age. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I am past retirement age, and I work because I mean, I have to work, but
mm-hmm.
I really, my heart, half of my heart, maybe not half, but a part of me feels I should just go into New York and help as many people as I can. And I don't even sit down and help them fill out I don't know what, but I'm scared. I mean, this is so
Right.
truthful, this conversation, but I'm scared, Suzanne, and everyone listening. I'm scared to go in and do that. But my heart is saying there must be, I, I give out candy bars, protein bars to the homeless.
Yes.
And
You also give out blankets. I've been with you when you've given out
yeah, I
blankets.
have blankets too. I have a lot of blankets. I'll have to give them to maybe one of the shelters, but I feel it's a scary thing now. I don't know where the homeless are, and I was going to give like Covenant House and God's Love We Deliver. You have to love Michael Kors. I mean, he does such a huge job with that. And I was going to send them those bars, the protein bars, and I thought I'm just going to give a monthly donation. Not a big deal, but just something that I feel that the teens,
Yeah.
homeless teens at Covenant
Oh yeah. Yeah.
is a big deal. So
Yeah. There's
there's
so
nothing.
many. There's so many. And like I was saying before, like it's very anxious. It's very anxiety making for us. We don't know what lies ahead, but we also recognize at the same time how fortunate we are. You know, we're talking about the homeless and the teens, and I was reading about, with the universities and colleges being closed down, students at the universities who are in the foster system, once you're, I think, 18, you're aged out. You don't have a foster home. So kids are being sent home from the schools, from the colleges and universities. If they're foster kids, they have no place to go. No place to go. They don't have a family to go to.
Wow, that's right. Jeez.
And then the prisons, the contagion rate is very high. People have started to die, and the corrections officers are dying.
Yeah.
There's been about, I think, at least 10 from one facility who
Well,
died.
and they're just not set up. I mean, I don't know if people are wearing masks and gloves and doing all that. I worked as a volunteer for years at TPW, Tennessee Prison for Women, and
Yes.
under the best of circumstances, it's a rough place to be, and I don't. You're at the mercy of whatever the government or whatever or the warden has initiated.
Yeah.
You're just so not even to say like this is maybe we should talk about positive things, which we can, but I think it's okay that we are talking like this and getting it off our chest to one another and to the people listening. And if you're listening and you want to add something, there's a website. Not a website, but I have an email, and it's Betty at desertcoursepodcast.com. It's Betty, BETTY at dessertcoursepodcast.com. And, people might have things that they want to add. I also thought that I would like to, if I could monetize, as they say, this podcast, I would devote that money to maybe Covenant House or God's Love We Deliver or some group. And that's what I'm kind of thinking about doing. Whatever it is, if it's $20 a week, $100 a month, I don't know. But I would like to be able to do that. And maybe, Suzanne, we can kind of figure this out together.
Yes, I'm a big believer that there's always something you can do. There's always something you can do. And, I don't make a lot of money, but Betty inspired me when I was in New York. And I would give people who are on the subways asking for food or money, I always tried to keep something in my bag, like a piece of fruit or a granola bar to give them. One of my nephews is a pro surfer and he travels all over the world. And I was reading an article about him. He's been written up about quite a bit, and he's inspired me. The writer of this article commented that he was in Manhattan with Balaram, my nephew, and they went in to get a slice of pizza, and Balaram came out with two and handed one to a homeless person who was out in front on the street. And I thought, that's perfect. It's brilliant. It's perfect. And so
most people don't even notice the homeless people standing there.
Yeah. And there's so many homeless in New York. One can argue that you have to put on blinders so you don't, just to protect yourself, because you're seeing so much suffering throughout the day. But it's what happens to us when we have those blinders on permanently. It doesn't serve us. It doesn't serve them, and it doesn't serve us.
I think people don't want to look. It's too horrible. Or I was once somewhere, and I was actually at a person's house playing tennis in LA, and it was, kind of a fancy tennis party. And I mean, clearly people at a swimming pool and a tennis court, then you can get a massage. It was that kind of thing. And we were there. And while we were there were 4 men on the hill behind the house in the hot sun, not gardening, but it was a hill. So they had to kind of dig their feet in so they didn't tumble down the hill, and they were weeding and doing that kind of stuff.
Doing landscaping.
The whole time in the heat. We're now, like when we got there, maybe 11, they were there. It was 3. It was so hot. They ate their food with their feet dug into the hill.
Right.
I don't know how they did it, but I said to someone, does it bother anybody? Can we take some cold water up to those guys? Does it bother anyone? And a woman actually said, as long as it's not me. And people do feel that way. So, I mean, this conversation's maybe making people feel upset, but this is how I feel, and this is how Suzanne feels.
Yeah.
If you have any,
that's a good point. That maybe that's what people. I wouldn't be at all surprised if that's part of the reason that people can't look.
I think so.
They can't look. So. It's they recognize that it could be them.
Yeah. She said, and she was a famous singer. She said, as long as it's not me. And I didn't know what to say to her. I just looked in her eyes, and she meant that. And she kept looking at me. She didn't take it back or anything like that. So Suzanne, how long are you going to stay in Cape Ann, which is one of the most beautiful places in this country?
Yeah. I'm going to be here on Cape Ann until May 21st.
And then I think the whole world, all of America is going to do something after May 21st. It seems like that's when we're going to still do social distancing, right?
Well, the significance of May 21st for me is that I'm in a rental unit, and so it's by the month. So my term ends May 21st.
Okay.
Yeah, but I guess there are also a lot of there are also a lot of things being said about, well, later in May we can probably do this, or hopefully we can do this, because we're all looking towards the future, which is a big giant question mark. So I'll be here till then, and yeah, it feels like a minute away, and it feels like a year away. And when I leave here, I'll go to my sister's in Rhode Island. She is at her son's in San Francisco with him and his family. And she has a 2-bedroom condo in Rhode Island, so I'll go there. And I'm very fortunate that her home is open to me just
It's just
for as long as I want. And so that's a really beautiful thing, very generous of her, and really saving my life.
But talking about saving your life, I want people to know that Suzanne Stack is a photographer extraordinaire. And I was trying to tell Jake, my son-in-law, about your pictures. And I said, it's like this. She takes pictures that 1,000 people walked by and didn't notice. And crazy, like you're walking on the street and there's a heart and dog shit. I mean, a heart made out of dog shit. I don't know.
Right.
But
heart-shaped dog shit. I like that.
Heart-shaped dog. But so, Suzanne, now that, this is your dessert course, your photography is amazing. What are you going to do? Where can people see it? Well, we'll do that because you're gonna have another, couple months. Maybe you're gonna put some of those photographs online so people can buy them.
Yes. My photography is definitely available for purchase, and one of the reasons I love living in New York is all the opportunities for things to capture. I love doing street photography. And
what do you look for when you're walking down the street? How does it work?
Yeah, I'm not looking for anything. I don't know. I just notice things, and if they make me laugh, I want to snap. I want to grab it. I want to snap it so I have it to laugh at later, or share with other people to maybe make them laugh. And I think that's one of the things that gave me pause about leaving New York, is walking away from that. Just like, well, I felt like a kid in a candy shop in New York, When I used to live in San Francisco, and when I lived there for many, many years. I lived there for 21 years. And when I decided to move back to New York, a client of mine said, I understand you wanting to leave an incredible, beautiful city that everyone wants to live in, like San Francisco. But here in San Francisco, you have to look for inspiration. And in New York, all you have to do is walk around the block.
Yeah.
And I thought that was perfect. I thought that just said it perfectly. And that was indeed one of the reasons, although I may not have known it at the time, that was one of the reasons that I was leaving San Francisco, was because I was feeling uninspired, and I really missed the energy of New York. So now I've left New York, and I'm like, whoa, what's going to happen? Am I going to be bored photographically? Is my eye going to be bored? Am I going to feel uninspired? But I found things in nature. I've found, there's been a lot of wind and rain where I am is kind of in the middle of the ocean, and it's spring. So there's lots of rain, and there's been tons of wind. Last night there were 30-mile-an-hour winds.
Whoa.
Yes, the house was shaking a bit. I love a good storm, so that's great.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to find that I am feeling inspired. I'm inspired in a different way. It's more about nature. And truth be told, I found nature in New York, and I photographed nature moments, for lack of a better word, in New York. So maybe I'll find some urbanness here that will catch my eye.
Well, Thoreau left a hustling, bustling life and moved into the country, into Walden's Pond.
Walden's Pond, right.
And someone said, but there's no life out there. And he said, well, if I look out of my window, there's a tree and it's getting buds because it's the spring, and there's a little bird, and I see that he's taking things up to build a nest, and the grass is coming in and it's raining and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know about all that life in the big city. So
that's beautiful.
It's so true. So, when I went to Nepal, I went on a 3-day retreat, and there is nothing. And you have a beautiful little room and a kitchen and a porch, and you're on, kind of land where you can walk anywhere you want.
Mm-hmm.
And this monastery, up on the top of the hill, there were older people and maybe people who were challenged, personally, physically, mentally,
Mm-hmm.
that had a really beautiful place up there. And I thought, well, how am I going to get through the 3 days when I first got there? And I was so busy. I was running up to see those people. But when you just sit and you look at nothing.
Yeah. You
We're
can
all
watch
missing the boat. We are missing the boat. Just slow down, calm down. Maybe I'm just talking to me.
No, I think this time is forcing us all to slow down.
Yeah. My daughter works from home, and you can tell when she has a phone call, and she kind of talks like this, and then I've got a call, and she goes in and she does her call and comes out like this, and then about a half an hour later we have wine or these incredible brews, these beers that are out here in the country that are made out here. They're fabulous.
Wow.
Or we'll have a glass of beer, a glass of wine, and then she relaxes. But we're gonna, let's hope everybody learns a lot, and let's hope everyone's nice. And when you hear about love and compassion, it doesn't mean you're not supposed to get mad. It doesn't mean someone can't really piss you off.
Right.
But we have a choice. Honestly, folks, you have a choice. Suzanne, if you and I both I was saying to my son, Michael, today, if you looked at something and I looked at something, it might make you mad. Mm-hmm. And I would say, what do you care? But it makes you mad from another story, from when you were 8 or who knows what. So I would look at it and it would mean nothing to me, and vice versa. I could see something and get mad, and you would say, what do you care? So let it go. Mm-hmm. That's all I can say is we can let it go. Yeah. And now more than ever, I think our emotions, we have to understand that we have control over emotions.
Yes. And see, we're being forced actually to face what's really important, right? Because people are dying. And, who cares about going on the greatest vacation or having what your friends have when you could be dying in a hospital far from the people who love you, not even surrounded by the people who love you.
Right. Was it that family where the mother and father kept They stayed on the phone for 30 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. But the other thing is even if it's whatever, don't get mad at people. Who cares? Don't look at someone and not like, let's just get over all that. Or I don't know, someone on television or this ridiculous president. He said that, someone did that. I'm just not even going to go there because my anger is not going to change anything.
Right. That energy can be put, not to sound all.
You can sound all
touchy-feely, hippy-dippy, but that
energy, you are touchy. Nothing wrong with that.
It's energy, and there's only so much of it, and it can be put towards that anger and frustration, or you can just say, you know what, I'm gonna put that aside. I'm gonna put my energy towards reading my kids a story, or calling someone I haven't called in a while, I haven't spoken to in a while, to see how they're doing with all this.
People have called me in my building and in the little stores around. They've all called to see how I am. I'm touched. I had a boyfriend, old. I guess we're both old now, from London. A very, very elegant gentleman. I haven't heard from him in so long. Wow. And he wrote me and he said, "How are you?" And I said, "Fine." And he said, "That a girl." I said whatever I said.
Right.
So English. That a girl.
That's great. That's great.
You go, girl. He didn't say you go, girl. He said that a girl.
Yeah.
But a lot of people have connected. So, we all wish that this would make us maybe a better world. We got a long way to go with that.
We have a long way to go, but I think we're headed in the right direction.
I
don't think we have. We don't have much choice. I don't think we have too.
It's the time that I read something. We have always felt that we controlled nature and that we controlled our environment. But we're in a situation now where this environment has control over us. We thought we could take animals out of their habitat and make them into slaves and all that.
Yeah.
That people did, and eat them and whatever. We thought we could do all that. That was all right. Well, we're getting our comeuppance right now.
That's so interesting. Yeah, that's so interesting. When I lived in San Francisco, I would think a lot about earthquakes because they happened while I was there. They're always a possibility. And I would think, I have a lot of respect for earthquakes. I'm glad earthquakes are here. I'm glad that they happen because they remind us at a time when we have control over more and more and more. Women can now control how late in life they want to have a baby. There are 50-year-old women who are having babies.
Right.
That is now scientifically possible. And we have control over so much, but we do not have control over the weather.
Or this.
Except in terms of a climate control way, where our actions and our abuse of the earth are causing changes in the climate and changes in the weather. But I need to state that, of course, but we don't have control.
No.
Over
but we think we have always felt that we did. Tornadoes, and
we don't have any control over the sun setting and the sun rising.
Every day since the dawn of time, it's all of that. It's very specific, as random as the world might seem. They know to the moment.
Yeah.
I have to thank you for this. And what I want to do is ask you back for a second time.
Oh, I would love that.
We're going to find out your progress.
I always enjoy talking with you, Betty. You're so interesting, and I love your insights. And that story about the tennis party is going to stay with me forever.
I wondered if I should even tell it. But when that woman, as I said, she is a very famous person. And I said, should I take water? Look at those guys. That's terrible. And she said, as long as it's not me. And I thought, whoa, and never worried about that. So Suzanne, enjoy Cape Ann.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
I hope you all get to visit Cape Ann sometime. It's a beautiful place.
And Suzanne is going to be putting her photographs in a form so we can buy them.
That's right.
That's right.
What she
Bye,
said.
Suzanne. You look beautiful.
Oh, Betty, you're so sweet.
Yeah, this is Suzanne Stack.
Signing off.
I'll miss
Betty.
you when I hang up. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Betty.